Hello and good evening, Dr. Mullins. My name is Robert Headley, and I am currently in your Management 309 class. I'm going to take this time to talk with you about my formal research report. The topic that I chose for my formal research report is taking a look at the technological improvements in the game of golf. The reason why I chose this topic was because I've been playing the game since the age of 6, and I currently play here on the men's golf team at UNCG. But over the years of playing golf, I've always understood how to play the game and what goes into playing the game, but I've never understood the technology side of the game. I've never understood why we have a club head, why we have a shaft, why we have a grip, the golf ball, and how all of these things have improved since the beginning of the sport. Looking at it, golf was created in the 15th century or so, and they started with tools that looked like gardening tools pretty much, just things that they kind of whipped up. You had your wooden shaft, your wooden head, or possibly an iron head at the end of a stick that a blacksmith had hammered out, and they were hitting golf balls across this field. And nowadays you have high-tech equipment that costs players hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to buy and to play the game. And for me as a player, I really want to understand why golf equipment improved like it did. Why did we go from having hickory shafts and wooden heads to now having steel and graphite and using different materials like steel and iron and composite, and just how exactly it improved over the timeline. Um, so basically, in order to start this research paper, I needed to take a look at different topics that I wanted to discuss in my paper. And basically, the main topics for me were to look at the golf shaft, the golf club head, the grip, the golf ball, and basically use these as kind of my headlines throughout my paper that my paper could revolve around. And once I really figured out the topics that I wanted to discuss, the next thing for me was to determine how I was going to obtain my research information. And of course, I decided that all of my research was going to be basically secondary, but I was also going to find primary data as well. First and foremost, the internet has always been my kind of go-to source for information, and it was for this project as well. The first thing I did was I went right to the internet and I searched at USGA, which stands for United States Golf Association.org, and I also went to PGA of America and just really kind of researched their databases and figured out what they had that could be useful in my paper. Aside from going to those sites, I also went to Google and just typed in kind of key phrases like the evolution of the golf shaft, the evolution of the golf ball, evolution of the grip, all those different things, and really came out with sufficient and significant amounts of data. And I understand that the internet does have discreditable sites of information, but through your class and also different classes, I've learned to pick up whether a site is credible or not credible. And through my findings, I've actually came across a really interesting story that I'd like to share with you in this video. I don't know if you are familiar with the game of golf or have ever played it, but Bobby Jones is arguably and considered one of the best golfers that has ever played the game of golf. And he was back in the hickory shaft era, which was right around 1910s, 1920s, 1930s. And during one of his golf expedition matches, he happened to break the shaft that was in his forewood. After the round, of course, he wanted to replace the shaft in his forewood, So manufacturers ended up taking the time to construct 4,000 different shafts before they came up with an exact replica of the shaft that he had previously in his Fortwood. This is a prime example of really how inconsistent and unreliable hickory shafts were for golfers, which is a huge reason why they found new and improved things to move towards, such as steel shafts and graphite shafts. But of course, all of this will be further covered in my paper with more detail. My second form of information was going to find primary data, which I used by constructing a personal interview with two individuals that I have tremendous respect for. My two individuals' names are Dr. Bob Christina and Mr. Eric Alpenfels. To kind of give you a quick bio on the two, Dr. Bob Christina is a highly respected researcher and educator on the game of golf. He currently is our assistant golf coach at UNCG and was once the dean of the School of Health and Science. He has done a lot of research about the game of golf and has helped authored and co-authored over 120 different scientific findings, as well as co-authoring and authoring 12 different books, which his current book is Instinctive Putting. My other source for information was from Mr. Eric Alpenfels. Mr. Alpenfels is currently a top 100 golf instructor in the world, according to the PGA of America. He's my swing coach and is also highly respected all across not only the nation, but the world, and is currently the leading instructor at the Pinehurst Golf Academy. Knowing these two personally, I knew that they would be perfect to interview. Unfortunately, I was not able to set up a time where I could have a face-to-face personal interview with them. If I did contact them and told them about my research paper and the topic that I chose, and sent them a quick 6-question questionnaire through email, which they gladly read through and answered all my questions and sent back instantaneously, pretty much. Just to kind of review what my questions look like on my questionnaire, my first question was, in their opinion, what was the biggest technological improvement in the game over the past 30 years or even 80 years? I felt like this was really a key question for the questionnaire because there's been so many different things that have happened in the game over the past 30, 80 years. We've gone from the hickory shaft all the way to graphite and steel. We've gone from just iron heads to now composite material heads that are lighter and more useful for a golfer. My second question was, would a scratch golfer or a professional golfer, which, just so you know, a scratch golfer is considered to be a very good player, and professional is obviously the best at it, would those two players be still as good if they used hickory shafts? I thought this was kind of interesting because a question like that is really going to show you how the technology that you have in your hand, whether it's hickory shafts and wooden heads, or it's graphite and steel heads, the technology could very well determine the type of player that you are. And so I really wanted to hear from these two kind of what their opinion was on that, and whether or not that a player could still be as efficient of a player if they had hickory shafts in their hands. My third question was the improvements that they've seen in the golf ball over the years. My fourth question was, what improvements have they seen in the shaft, and how has the shaft become a more efficient and effective part of the golf club for the golfer? My fifth question was, what improvements did they feel were better for the club head? Was it the material that was used or the size of the club head? And finally, my last question was kind of a theoretical question, more of a real opinion question. Um, in their opinion, what is going to be the next big golf advancement? What is going to be the new thing? What is going to be the new technology? And it was really interesting reading through all their answers to these 6 questions. Not only how similar some of their answers were, but also how different some of their answers were. And it's really nice kind of having diverse information to be able to put into your research paper. Finally, in this project, I know that we have to have some data to back up all of this and to be able to put into an Excel format. For me, I thought it would be very interesting to set up a session with Mr. Eric Alpenfels and hit all of these different clubs that have come through this timeline. So my idea was to hit hickory shafts and hickory woods, also hit steel shafts with wooden heads, and then also hit the technology that I use today and really see the difference in the clubs, whether that difference is feel, whether the difference is how far the golf ball goes. In order for me to measure this, I'm primarily going to measure how far the golf ball went in yardage. And I really feel like there's going to be a big difference in the yardage. I feel like the golf ball is not going to travel as far using hickory shafts and hickory wood heads compared to the technology that I use today, which is graphite shafts and titanium heads and steel composite. So I think that data information is going to be very interesting and also very helpful in my research paper. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to my formal research paper and all of the research that I have done so far in constructing the paper. And thank you very much for taking your time. Appreciate it.